Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here. And yeah, Nintendo, 1 o'clock this morning, at least my time, just turned around and said, hey, you know what, that Labo thing? Well, we're going to do VR with it. It was a bit of a surprise to read that first thing in the morning. I mean, there was a rumor going around, I think, in mid-February. Not that I saw it, but now subsequently I have, saying that Nintendo were gonna do something about VR and have some sort of announcement about VR, and well, it turns out that they kind of did, yeah. So in this video, we're just gonna talk about it generally and my feelings on it, and then, you know, sort of maybe look into some of the things that they haven't announced, and obviously the stuff that they have. And then I'm also going to talk briefly, potentially not briefly, depending on how I get on, about how this could be potentially a bad thing for the VR market. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. Okay, I'm not going to go into enormous detail about the details of the whole thing, because we don't know a huge amount, and anyway, you can just read up on that, and I imagine most people will probably already know it, but just in case you don't, the long and short of it is, there's a load of gubbins coming out, which I'm going to flash on screen now. And it's all focused around VR and, you know, sort of VR experiences. They've got like lenses and everything that you look through just like any other VR headset, and you use the Switch, and for some reason there isn't a head strap, so it looks like you've got to hold it there permanently, which to be honest would make me feel better, because I don't want my Switch strapped to my face dragging my head down. So what have you got? You've got the glasses themselves, you've got like an elephant thing, you've got a bird, you've got just like a generic viewfinder thing. I think that's just part of the goggles. You've also got a camera and a blaster, which is a gun. They haven't actually said what these things are actually gonna do, you know, it's just, you know, hey, we're doing a thing and here's some pictures, in typical Nintendo fashion. However, they have got in this promotional image an idea of what we can see, and I'm gonna have to look at it for reference. How about that? So let's start with the blaster. Now the blaster, I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory, but it's got like a missile firing out, so I'm guessing it's gonna be some sort of shooting game. The camera has a load of like fish and sharks and stuff around it, so I imagine it's going to be taking photography underwater, which is weird. Why not just photography of other things? The general viewer has got like a planet with some aliens on it, so it's going to be, I imagine, like a constellation looking thing, and maybe you look around and, I don't know, press a button, you can zoom in, and then these aliens go woo, and then you see the scary ones from Super Mario Galaxy 2. The bird has got a load of birds around it. Well, two, it's birds. And then the weird one is the elephant, and it's got like a pencil, so I imagine it's going to be some sort of like drawing thing, but in a really, really bizarre way. And as somebody known as Andre Seegers pointed out on Twitter, it looks like that on the elephant's face they've got like IR dots, and the Joy-Con is actually pointing, the camera is actually pointing towards the IR dots. And so chances are that's how it works. It all looks vaguely interesting. I do think that the idea of holding VR up there means that it's not going to be the most immersive, simply because you're not going to be able to sort of just feel like you are standing and have free movement of your hands and stuff and look around and head tracking and all that. There could indeed be head tracking, even in the most basic one, which doesn't have any Joy-Con or anything in there, because it turns out the Switch itself, the actual console, in fact, here we go, I've got a prop. This bit, you know, no Joy-Con or anything like that, still has an accelerometer and a gyroscope in it, and a brightness sensor. So it can, you know, it should be able to do a half-decent job of head tracking in that sense. I don't know whether it'll be implemented, but it's possible. The more and more I look at this Labo kit, it looks exciting. It looked really exciting at first, and I was like, okay, that might actually be pretty damn cool. Of course, it always comes down to the software, but we'll get onto that in a minute. However, the more and more I look at it, I just sort of think, it's going to be like the others, isn't it? The standout one is probably the elephant, simply because, you know, drawing, artistic stuff, you know, maybe it's a 3D drawing or something. Could well not be, but, you know, it could be, you know, it could be 3D drawing, you know, drawing in a 3D space, which is kind of a bizarre idea and actually really cool. However, we thought that about the piano as well, in fact, or at least I did, and I thought, oh wow, the piano is going to be great, and it turned out to be just as short-lived as everything else. And I think that's my primary concern about this. Everything's going to be short-lived again. There's going to be no meat to the games. It's all just going to be, oh, look, fun, do something slightly different. Okay, I've done that now. Do I go back to it? Never. Hang on, I've just read something in the PR that I didn't see before. Apparently, it encourages passing around the Toy-Con creations among, this should be amongst, a group of people so that everyone in the room can easily join in on the fun. To help encourage this social gameplay, players simply slip the Nintendo Switch console into the Toy-Con VR goggles and hold it up to their eyes to explore numerous games and experiences. No head strap needed, so that confirms it. Does that mean that there won't be any head tracking? Because then, surely if you're just passing it around, then it would like change the perspective on everything, unless it's not important that the perspective changes and it's sort of, you know, then you put it on and you have your own sort of 0 point. For example, like looking up at a constellation thing. It wouldn't really matter, or maybe you're looking around at a constellation thing. Whatever. It wouldn't necessarily matter in that sense. However, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of weird. Who gets a big group of people together? I mean, I suppose I'm not the target demographic, so maybe I'm entirely wrong about this, but who gets a big group of people together and says, hey, let's do some VR, guys? And that weirdly takes me into one of my main points about this, and it's not a point that I came up with myself, I must admit. A colleague of mine did, and I was just like, that's a cool idea, I'm gonna run with that in the video, and he was like, that was the idea. This could well be a lot of people's first experience with VR, because, yeah, you know, you had Google Cardboard and stuff like that back in, like, what was it, like 5 years ago or something like that, you know, so a lot of people sort of, maybe in their sort of teens at the moment, or older, like muggins here, has, you know, used that sort of basic VR, whoa, look, isn't it fun? What a jolly bit of fun it is. And, you know, that's fine, you know, we've had that experience, but a lot of people probably haven't, because it was just sort of like a flash in the pan, and now there's this whole younger generation that have never potentially tried VR at all, and then all of a sudden something targeted towards them comes out and is like, VR, virtual reality. And virtual reality is the coolest thing to a child, or at least it was to me. In 1993. Actually, I would have been 2. I don't think I would have known what VR was. So if this is going to be quite a lot of people's first experience with VR, you know, VR's arguably sort of a flourishing market at the moment. It's a new idea. It's crazy. It's mental. It's expensive as well. It's very expensive. You know, kids could, you know, like have fun building it and put it together and sort of, wow, look around, woo, fun. And then it gets put in a cupboard for, you know, however long until it dies or decomposes. It is only cardboard. Except there is like a big plastic insert and like potentially glass lenses, which feels kind of anti-Labo, but you know, it's fine. There's some things you can't do with cardboard. So imagine if that was your first experience with VR, you know, something bite-sized, which I imagine the games are going to be. Let's be brutally honest. They're not going to be big in-depth games with, you know, sort of progression or anything like that. It's just going to be faff around, oh look, fun, wee, sort of toy box type thing, which is not going to have much longevity at all. Aww. So then you see the more expensive options and you see things like HTC Vive and PSVR and all that sort of thing, and you sort of think, I'm not really sure. No, I've tried VR. It was all right, but I feel like I've had my fill of it, you know. That's bad. That is bad for the VR market. It's gonna be good for Nintendo, probably, no doubt, because VR, it's a big buzzword, and Labo, it's like cardboard, and woo, you know, and it's fun, isn't it? It's fun for children. However, the impact could be pretty substantial. Maybe it won't be. I don't know. I'm not an analyst. But I do think if this is going to be your first experience with VR, you're not going to be interested in anything else. It might sort of put you off. You might have fun with it, but then you sort of feel that you've done everything that can be done with it, which is absolutely not the case. And VR's quite a delicate market at the moment. You know, it's not massive. There's quite, you know, there's obviously very dedicated people out there who say VR is the future, and I'm not sure I personally agree with that, but you know, fair enough, you can have that opinion. So to potentially lose an entire generation that have been quote unquote put off by Labo VR, that's a bad for business, undoubtedly. Of course, it could amount to absolutely nothing, and this could have no impact whatsoever. It could even arguably get more people into VR, because, you know, sort of it's a cheap entryway. It's like $80 for the whole thing, which, you know, is how much Labo costs, which We've talked about that plenty of times. So on the flip side, it could capture people's imaginations and capture people and they go, wow, VR's so cool, I really want the more expensive, you know, better one. So it could have that impact. It's very difficult to tell because we're in the past. I am. But all in all, I don't see this as necessarily being a bad thing, you know, it's VR. I don't imagine it's going to appeal to an older audience. I don't think it's intending to, which is fine, you know, it's trying to target a younger demographic. Would I get it? I don't think I'd pay for it. If Nintendo got in touch with me and said, Alex, do you want to do a video on Labo VR and see what it's all about? I'd be like, yeah, sure, that sounds like fun, but you know, I wouldn't turn it away, but I also don't think I'd pay for it. I don't think I'd get enough out of it for the price. Again, I'm not the target demographic, so that's not terribly surprising. Would I buy it for my kids if I had any? Maybe, you know, I might show it to them and say, hey, what do you think of this? And they go, Dad, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'd be like, okay, you know, it's $80. What's that in the UK? How much is it? It doesn't say. But yeah, I mean, like for a Christmas thing or something, then yeah, you know, it wouldn't be too bad, you know, it'd be a nice little gift for the kids, something to keep them quiet for a bit. But I do worry about the longevity of it again. But maybe kids have way more fun with it in term, you know, long term than an adult can because of attention spans and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a child anymore, so I'm completely out of touch in that regard. But all I can talk about is from my own perspective, and yeah, it seems okay. It just seems like all the other Labo kits, to be honest, except it's this close to your face. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you strap that subscribe button to your face in a most ungainly fashion and hold it there with cardboard and your own 2 hands. And be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.